This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. I must tell you, every time I hear Maria Muldaur sing that song and she says, "I put my camel to bed," how the hell do you lay a camel down? Has anybody ever really taken the time to ask her? You know, if anybody can, I'm sure my next guest tonight, Brian David Anderson with Tri-Vortex. Brian has been a great friend of the X-Zone. And Brian, I just want to wish you and your family the very best of 2012. And you know what? We love having you here as a member of the X-Zone. You and I go back a long time. And thanks for all the great work that you've done over the years.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it very much.
So how would you put a camel to bed?
You'd hump him.
Jeez. Will that be one hump or two?
Several.
Oh my goodness, Brian! Here we are. We're in 2012, and let's take a look back at the year 2011, because 2011 was filled with surprises, disasters. There were one or two good moments, and how does Brian David Anderson look at 2011?
Well, it also it exemplified again for me, and regretfully every year, but especially this year, is that it's an old adage that says that if you truly want power, then you have to do both two things. You have to create the problem and always come up with the solution. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to have power, then you need to put yourself in the position of the good guy. But at the same time, you've got to create and control your bad guys. And you cannot have bad guys that you cannot control, because otherwise you don't have total control. And I believe we've seen a really good example of that on several of our major events that have occurred this year. I believe that exemplifies that particular type of adage.
We saw the fall of Egypt. We saw the Egyptians hail in the military, and now they're against the military. We've seen how the social media has been used in the fall of Egypt, Syria, and other governments, and it was tried within North America, using the Occupy camps, and that failed miserably. Why do you think Occupy failed, and yet the exact same tactics that were used succeeded in Egypt?
Well, did they really succeed, though? Because all they did is remove Mubarak, and now they have a repressive military government. So they really didn't solve very much. I have again, as I've been on your program before, talking about my trips to Egypt, and I still have contacts over there, and they're basically saying it is worse now. It is totally worse than it ever was under Mubarak.
So it's better to live with the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
Well, and you also, again, as I said before, if you look at who were the people that brought about all the ferment and everything else like that in Egypt, they all had New York connections. This was not a locally grown type of revolution. It was outside, and it was directed from outside. And that's when we look at the Wall Street Occupy, or the whole Occupy Wall Street type of movement, then I have a lot of people in the news media and photographers and that I've talked to, and they would visit these camps and et cetera, and it was just amazing is that they would have buffet lunches for these people. I mean, very, very expensive buffet lunches. They would go in at night and want to go interview these people, and they weren't. They went back home to their beds and came back.
All right, listen, Brian, you and I have to do something that we do all the time. We've got to take a commercial break. Please stand by. Once again, thanks very much for joining us today, Brian. And to all the members of the X-Zone Nation, Happy New Year. For more information on Brian David Anderson, two websites, www.trivortex.com and www.mygodimhit.com. That's MyGodimHit.com. HIT.com. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our beautiful studios in snowbound Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. 1-800-610-7035 worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Just before I get back to Brian David Anderson, who's joining us, he is the gentleman behind Trivortex. That's trivortex.com. And another website, mygodimhit.com. That's mygodimhit.com. I would just like to just bring you up and give you a bit of a consumer alert. Over the Christmas holidays, we were inundated with emails and stories about authors who have been allegedly ripped off, not only by book sales, but by the royalties, and blatant violation of copyright laws internationally by a print-on-demand company called Publish America. Now, if you have any questions about Publish America, we have a website that we've put up, www.bewareofpublishamerica.com. That's www.bewareofpublishamerica.com. In fact, we're going to be having several authors on this week who have been, in their own words, ripped off. And what you are going to hear, it's just going to bamboozle you. It's so important that this information get out, that this is why the research and investigators, both here at the X-Zone Radio and TV show and the X-Chronicles newspaper, are working hand in hand on this major investigation, and more about that as the week progresses. We have sent invitations to Publish America, several, for either an on-air interview or to send us a statement that we could read on air. And they have not responded to either. But the authors, they want their voices heard, and we're going to give them that platform. Brian David Anderson, you and I were talking about Egypt and, the difference between what happened in Egypt and the Occupy camp that was worldwide. Why do you think that Occupy failed?
Well, and again, I think that if you really went back up into the hierarchy of both revolutions, you're going to find the same people, both for Egypt and for Wall, yes, because they had some really interesting connections of the persons before Mubarak was deposed. Those key opposition people all came from New York. And then you also now have in the Wall Street Occupy type of movement. You say it's failed. Well, again, the Egypt thing also failed too. But there was it was interesting is that the Wall Street then its timing was very interesting, because then you came up with this new bill that came up, 1068. That was the National Defense Bill, and inside of that now is basically Americans now, the language is set. It's kind of ambiguous in ways, but they now have the ability to basically pick any American off the street without any type of due process secretly and put you there indefinitely.
Wow.
And nobody will know where you went. So the Occupy movement also provided them, at least within Washington, of having this kind of like paranoia because of this. it was kind of created. So they created, I believe, all of the whole Occupy was totally orchestrated, and it was all done by Soros and by the actual people of Wall Street themselves, and also your military type of thing. It was a perfect type of way of protesting. There really was, when they went to go to do Occupy Wall Street, they're just going towards the symptom rather than going to the Federal Reserve banks and protesting there. They went after the symptom, but that symptom then provided them other excuses, like 9/11 provided the excuse for the Patriot Act. Where then you had all these Occupy all over, and there was all this supposed violence and everything. But then you look at it, a lot of it's all staged. But there was everything was a lot of it theater. But that set up then for this paranoia in Washington. That set up then for these bills that are coming up now that are just they make 1984 look like a little child's play. Both the legislation they've now passed and what is now coming up. And we also have the major promises by this now Democrat occupant of the White House that he was going to shut down Guantanamo, and basically Guantanamo has now been expanded, and now with this new defense bill that they did, basically all of these gulags that are around the world that are run by the United States, now they can put American citizens in them.
All right.
So not only is he's broken his promise, but now it's actually expanded. So we really see that step in 2011, regretfully.
All right, maybe you can help me understand something, Brian. Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba, right?
Yes, it's offshore. So it is not on the United States territory. And if it was on the United States territory, that means those prisoners would be under the United States Constitution and their laws.
Right.
And by keeping them off, then they're basically in this limbo type of status, which is just, I mean, that not even, I don't even know if the Nazis did this in Germany.
Well, you know what I can't understand? Isn't there a boycott of travel to Cuba for Americans?
Well, but see, Guantanamo is kind of like off on this offshoot. It's not really Cuban territory.
But isn't it on the island where Cuba is?
It's on the island itself, yes. But
so how did the United States of America pull this off?
Again, they had this little piece of territory on the Cuban island itself that doesn't belong to the United States but doesn't belong to Cuba, so it's in this limbo type of state. And again, when you look at the whole revolution of Cuba, that was also another stage set because Castro himself was a very, very rich type of family. And so was he really doing communism, or was he fulfilling another type of agenda? But anyway, it started, the basis of it is 30, 40, 50 years ago. But here we have this little piece of property that we know about. So Guantanamo is the one we know about. There are other ones that are secret all over the world that we don't even know a thing about. And now, with this new legislation that just passed, and because of the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations, which again was a failure per se of what? I mean, what was their objective? It was an objective type of protest. There really wasn't anything that they said that here's what we want to do and here's why we're protesting. This is what we want. We're just generally, it's like I remember back in the 1950s, we remember the thing called the beatniks.
Oh yeah,
and they just said, well, and then you had the whole thing with what do you want to protest? What do you want to protest? And said, what do you got?
Exactly.
And it's basically type of thing. So we're protesting, and we don't know why we're protesting. We're just protesting. So that's basically what this Occupy Wall Street. As far as when I was looking at it, I was like, it really had no focus. And if you really want to focus, then go to the Federal Reserve Bank. That's where it all starts. So again, giving the whole thing about the buffet dinners, the people who occupied it. There has been now some really great videos up on YouTube and circulated now. They're showing a lot of the people that were in these Occupy were actually hired actors, and they can go back and look and see. They have little bit part type of actors that they have circulated through various types of events that have occurred. And it's really interesting that these faces keep popping up.
With the use of the social media, like Facebook, Twitter, and of course cell phones and the texting that was going on during the Occupy. Do you think that what these protesters have actually done is open up the door for the government to start really clamping down and monitoring more and more?
We now have another bill here that's in the United States called SOPA, and they're trying to, again, you have all these protests, and they're using all the texting. Mm-hmm. But again, SOPA is also really being pushed by Hollywood. And basically, if you have any type of information that is on your website, and it belongs to like some sort of news media, and even if you just have a link to send over and promote it, you can end up with 3 years in jail on it. I mean, basically what it's going to do is shut down the internet, and it's going to, if that SOPA does pass, it's going to have a tremendous impact on how your website is now being monitored for the United States.
Well,
basically it could be blocked.
So why is Hollywood behind this? I don't understand it. Is it because of the pirating?
That's whole paranoia again about this is that they're using Hollywood, I believe, again as a scapegoat.
Well,
Hollywood's all protesting. They're doing our movies and we're losing this money. And again, that to me is another cover. What they're really wanting to do is to shut down all of this free information to flow. When they planned all of this thing, the elitists, and they planned 30, 40 years ahead, maybe even 100 years ahead of what they're doing, I really feel that they got caught by the surprise. They did not feel that the internet would have the impact that it does. And that's one positive thing about 2011 is it showed them their hand is that they're very concerned. They're using other, subplots like Hollywood wants their, block their, save their money and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. That's not really the reason. The reason is they want to shut down as much, as you said, the social media where people are communicating, talking, texting, basically because, again, of your website, this is why also we're having this telephone conversation, this whole conversation is on the internet. You're not, there's just so many things happening, and basically your website can be tremendously, and your whole operation in the United States can be impacted by the SOPA. Now there's been enough protest with it that's been turning, like I have my websites with GoDaddy, and I protested to them, and lots of people protested and took their stuff off, and now they've turned around and they were supporting SOPA. Now Sony was all for SOPA. Now they've turned around. So again, the positive thing is that the people, it seems that especially, it's interesting how a lot of people are standing up in 2011 to keep their internet right.
All right, Brian, stand by. We've got to take our commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Brian David Anderson is our guest, X-Zone Nation. www.tryvortex.com. That's TRI vortex.com. And www.mygodimhit.com. mygodimhit.com. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Still no word when we're going to be starting live with TV. As soon as we get some more information on that, X-Zone Nation, I will certainly be more than happy to let you know. We'll post it on our website, as well as we'll certainly get it out through our email listings. Brian David Anderson is my guest, www.trivortex.com. That's TRIVORTEX.com. And www.mygodimhit.com. That's MyGodImhit.com. So, Brian, we're doing a bit of a review of 2011. And what do you think was the major story of 2011?
Well, for me, I think that the whole Fukushima thing was probably
big time,
the primary thing, and it's the Fukushima earthquake, and then the resulting the fallout of that,
tsunami,
literally. And the tsunami. And now a lot of people have contended that the earthquake was created. And I've been on your show before, and we've talked about earthquakes, and I went back and looked at everything, and it didn't make any sense at all. There was no type of moon situation. There was nothing that gave any indication for that type of earthquake to occur then. It was totally out of the patterns that we have talked about over the years. And so that I said, okay, that kind of looked like a little bit of flag there. What also bothered me is that they showed the nuclear power plants, and I just can't, from a little bit that I know about nuclear energy, is to have a little bit of salt water or water come into the plants doesn't make them blow up like they did. And the question being is, were they sabotaged? Now, if the earthquake was created and then they also sabotaged the power plants, they'd have to have a motive of why, and they just, I don't think, again, they just wouldn't go out and do it. And I believe that the elitists, whoever they might be, and I have my own little opinions of who they are, but the elitists and then that whole group is what they're wanting to do is create a Sino-Asian type of sphere. And here you had Japan and you had China, and they're basically, economically, Japan was way ahead. And now all of this is all changed because of the earthquake. And they basically, if it was created, the motive would be to force all of Asia, or at least Japan and China, those two superpowers, and make Japan subservient to China. And has that happened? Well, now we have all the events occurred. There was something that occurred last week, went right under the radar, that had a major deal, and is basically, yes, that has now occurred. What happened is that the two currencies of Japan and China, within now 6 months by the end of 2012, they will be one currency.
Plus, last week, this mega deal of oil to China from Afghanistan went through of $700 million.
Right. So then a lot of that oil probably also is going to end up in Japan. So it's basically what you have is a Sino-Asian type of pact. And so there's two things that they either created the earthquakes and they then blew up the power plants, and then just basically destroyed Japan as far as economically in so many ways, and then they got their way. Or then the result, if there wasn't any per se conspiracy, but still the results are the same. Basically now China and Japan by the end of this year are going to be, in 2012, are going to be totally in step with one another, because their currency. Can you imagine having Canada and the United States having one currency?
No, I can't.
I mean, that's what the whole North American Union was about. Yeah. And so here you have, without any type of as far as I know, there was no discussions, there was no committee meetings, there was no input by citizenry, nothing occurred. Now it's just been a unilateral type of decision made that here the two currencies are going to merge.
Yep.
At the beginning, it's going to be that they're going to have a lot of cooperation and they're going to be going back and forth. But essentially, it was like taking that North American Union and just basically on super speed. And again, what would happen is if we had a major earthquake here in the United States or Canada, and would that prompt us to try to put our currencies with Mexico? And so that was, to me, it's under the radar. We don't ever hear this. And again, like the oil deal that went with Afghanistan, it's all put under. We don't see it in the mainstream news media. But to me, that was the news story of 2011 was the earthquake. And at the end, right here in December, here we now have merged currencies, and that would be the motive of why they did that.
Politically, Brian, how do you see the deal with China and Afghanistan being taken by the U.S.?
We're over there fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. The United States is, where people are dying and all sorts of things are going down. And, here now they make an oil deal with China. So, it's sort of like the whole thing about these wars and controversies seem, again, so much contrived. Because, again, is if we were going over there to, secure things, you would think that they would be more, why would they provide all of this, basically handing the oil over to China?
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, it goes, on and on. Again, we have in the Afghanistan thing, another little side story there is that they had the supposed death and a murder of Osama bin Laden. Of course, we never had an autopsy. We never had really any true body brought forward, and people are buying this. Then you have the SEAL Team 6, those poor guys. They were probably part of a fake operation. It never occurred, and then all of them ended up being then supposedly all killed. They died in a helicopter crash.
That's right.
Now the question being is, did they really die? Did they fake their deaths? And then the question being is it really just convenient? Is that here were all these members of the SEAL team, and if they ever came back to the United States and really probably told their truths, the story would be totally different as far as how it was probably faked. And it was just really so convenient that you had every one of those individuals who supposedly was part of this charade, which I think, Osama bin Laden was probably already expired. He's been expired for 7 years, but they keep killing him. Finally, they just now, killed him. But now, here these poor guys either were actually killed or they faked their deaths.
Two more stories that are going to be very prevalent in this year of 2012, Brian, and as I see it, is number one. The first story is that Iran now has nuclear rods and that they are ready to test missiles. And then we also have the passing of Kim Jong-il and the passing of the power to his younger son, who he just arbitrarily made a general. He's never had any military experience. And how do you see this affecting the world powers to be?
Well, again, as I said, this exemplifies the whole thing about that you have to create the problems and the solutions. So how much is Iran totally really a problem, and how much of it is so totally contrived? And again, I know a lot of people from Iranians that have fled over here after Ayatollah came in, and they were saying, that even when they were coming out, they said, this is all ridiculous, because here you had the Slovak, who was their hated Secret Service, and the secret police. Well, one thing was that when the Shah was deposed, that Slovak leader was not deposed. In fact, he actually gained power and stayed in power, and then became the secret police for Khomeini.
Yeah.
So that raises a flag of saying, wait a minute. Are we really? Is this again more of the dog and pony type of show that we're actually getting here?
And like my producer Craig just reminded me, is that we've got Putin in Russia. Apparently his popularity is very strong amongst the young, and yet there is a large number within Russia who want to oust him out of power. And then you've got Putin now saying that he believes the U.S. is behind this this new kind of protest in Russia?
Well, and again, we have to go back to the beginnings of Russia. Again, you had Lenin, and then he had another underling underneath him who actually truly was the communist and really was the person. And during the middle of World War I, Lenin goes to New York, then goes to Paris. They put him on a train, and they shoot him right through all the front lines, and he goes right directly to Moscow, and then takes over. And then the person who actually truly was doing all the hard work and really was communist, I think it was started with the name with a V name, and he gets ousted and sent off to Mexico City, and eventually was assassinated. And so again, how much of all of this is just how much is real and how much is theater? There's so much of this. When you hear all of this, the big war, where we're going to maybe go to war, and they got this and they got that. How much of this is basically for our not in our entertainment, but for our manipulation?
So we've got the trouble still brewing in the Middle East. Do you think that this is the year where there's going to be an outright conflict between Israel and Iran?
I just really, again, they've been rattling this sword for a long time. What's interesting, though, is you did have the Council on Foreign Relations. They came out with people don't realize, again, if you read their little policy papers that they put out, their December policy paper, they came out, or their quarterly paper, or their little magazine came out, and they are now promoting a war with Iran. They were saying it's time to go in and take care of Iran. And so, if we go, and then basically they said that right before they invaded Iraq, and they said it before Vietnam, and they, anytime that there has been an invasion or there's been a war, you've always, at least the last 50 years, you always had the Council on Foreign Relations come out of the little newsletter and said, we support it. And then that almost becomes, policy within the United States because it's been in the Council on Foreign Relations quarterly magazine.
Do you think?
There's just so many other types of other factors that are going on there. I'm going to say no. If it is, it's going to be minor. It's going to be like they'll go in and do a little bombing type of thing. And I think that probably I don't think they have all their ducks in a row to have, quote, a major conflict yet. And I think that's more like 13 or 14.
Tell me something. Do you think that we're going to see the military rise of Russia and potentially the Cold War atmosphere that we had in the 60s?
Again, what you have to do is go read the policy papers.
I guess so.
And see what they want, what stages they want to put this on.
So if we go to the policy papers, we see the script.
Yeah, that's where, again, you go to the Council on Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome, what is it? All these little organizations also go to Georgetown University and to Fordham University and look at their quarterly papers and what they put out in their policy papers. And basically, if you review all of that, then you have an insight of what's going to be going on. And regretfully, they're saying right now, Israel and the United States is going to do something about Iran, but for some reason, even though it's in the policy papers, if they do, my feeling is they're going to take it in a real light type of manner. I don't think it's going to be like a major type of invasion type of thing. I don't see it as being, and there maybe be a retaliation a little bit by Iran, but now they're doing all the saber rattling. Supposedly now there's been a whole big troop influx going into Israel. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, but you and I have to take our final break, Brian. Please stand by. Always great having you with us. Exonation Brian David Anderson is my very special guest this hour. The year is now 2012, January the 2nd. It is Monday. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll free. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And a special hello to all our affiliates, KOHI in St. Helens, Washington, and of course my good friends at KKRP in Oklahoma. My name is Rob McConnell. Brian David Anderson and I will be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. And welcome back, everyone. Brian David Anderson is our special guest. www.trivortex.com. That's trivortex.com. And My God, I'm Hit, MyGodImHit.com. Hey, Brian, I understand that you actually went to a reunion and spoke to some people there. And part of what you were working on was mentioned. And I was wondering if you could just briefly tell us what went on.
Well, again, we talked about the JFK material and what happened in Dallas, and I went home for my 40-year reunion, and there's been a whole big thing about the Ruth Payne, is where Marina Oswald, Lee Oswald, they lived in that house, and there was a whole big deal about that. And then Ruth Payne always claimed that she had no other more contact with Marina Oswald from the day that they took her away then, and they've only had minor contact, and they just had letters, and that's it.
Right.
Well, a high school buddy of mine said, well, "Did you know that Ruth Payne lived across the street from me?" And I said, "No, I did not know that." I said, "I didn't." He said, "No, she moved." And I said, "Oh," and he said, "Yeah," and he said, "We saw Marina Oswald going in constantly, in and out of the house." And I went,
Whoa.
What? So I got a sworn affidavit. If you go up on MyGodImHit.com, I've written up a little paper about this whole thing. And it's interesting to know, too, is that there was potential some money that got exchanged that Ruth Payne came in contact with. There was a whole thing that happened on the weekend of November 22nd, and she came into some cash, supposedly. But then I went and looked at this house that she supposedly bought across the street from a friend, and it turns out she bought 3 houses on the neighborhood. They didn't even know that. And here she was living in this small little house in South Irving, and these houses are in the real upper middle class area. She bought 3 upper middle class homes 6 months after JFK died. And then she bought 2 more after that, and then sold the whole thing. She made it up probably around $80,000. And where'd she get the money? Because she didn't sell her home, her original home. So there was a whole thing that it was just unbelievable of the contact that came from them. And if you go up on the My God, I'm Hit, MyGodImHit, I've got a small little story up there, and that's interesting. You go home for your high school reunion, and you uncover a little tidbit of history. That's what happened for me.
Fascinating. Brian, first of all, once again, a very happy New Year to you and yours. And you're going to be with us 1 week from tonight. And, of course, with more very interesting information. And, who knows what will happen between now and then. So please stay in touch with us, Brian.
Yeah, there might be some really interesting things happen in Iraq over the next 10 days.
We'll be watching it. Brian, take care of yourself, and thanks again for joining us. Happy New Year, buddy.
All right, thank you, and keep on humping.
You bet. One hump or 2.
All right, and that hump back.
Yeah, of course. Bye-bye. Brian David Anderson, www.trivortex.com and www.mygodimhit.com. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the hour as the X-Zone continues here on our broadcast affiliates worldwide from our studio in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.